I'm very good, thank you.
Well, we've seen a statement from the minority, but we're also seeing subsequent things that have happened in terms of the fact that you even in the statement say you look at the program that has been approved and then make subsequent comments on it. But what are your initial views on the approval given to us?
Okay, thank you very much. Largely, our concern emanates from the fact that government waited a bit too late before taking. They took the decision to enter into an IMF program far too late. Government of Ghana will have to do a lot more, and the people of Ghana will have to endure a lot more before Ghana's economy comes back to stream. This is particularly concerning to us, obviously, as a political party, and also as citizens of this republic, because we think that what the government is seeking to do now, if care is not taken, will crush the livelihood of the ordinary Ghanaian. In fact, what the government has done all this time is to transfer the private sector insolvency, the public sector insolvency to private sector insolvency. Because from 2019 down to 2020, we saw a country that is gradually drifting to insolvency. Lo and behold, by end of 2020, Ghana became insolvent as a result of government's action and inaction. But what this government started doing in 2022, by the announcement of domestic debt exchange and a raft of measures that has been prescribed by the IMF deal, clearly moves the country from the public sector insolvency to private sector insolvency, or transferring of burden from the governmental level to the households level. And that is what we've seen so far. The IMF program obviously was inevitable. They had no choice. They had to go into the IMF program. But if they had done it 2 years earlier, or at least 1 year earlier, certainly majority of what we are seeing today could have been avoided. But unfortunately, we have no choice than to take this country through this painful path. And the people of Ghana will have to endure this painful process of healing our economy. I've read through some of the documents that were published yesterday by the IMF on the IMF website. But it will surprise you that some of the things that we have seen there in terms of the measures, action that has been implemented already, and performance criteria with the structural benchmarks, with timelines, and some of the things that are about to happen, clearly a lot more is going to happen. An example, we talked about the fact that in the program, as part of the Memorandum of Economic and Financial Policies, as approved by the IMF board, being the conditionalities that the government of Ghana has agreed or proposed to IMF to engage in. Some include the fact that there's going to be complete freeze on employment. So there will be no freeze, there will not be employment, not net freeze. You see, there are two types of freeze: net freeze and complete freeze. Net freeze means that at the right time, you are going to replace people that are going on retirement. So in short, if you have a nominal role of, say, 300,000 workforce, you will not exceed 300,000 workforce. So if somebody leaves, or if somebody retires, or for any reason you sack someone, you have the liberty to replace. That is net freeze. But freeze in employment is the fact that if you have a nominal role of 300, if somebody goes on retirement, or for any reason somebody leaves or sacked, then obviously you do not have the liberty to replace. So in short, within the time frame obviously your nominal rule of 300 may be reduced to say 250. This is what the government has agreed with the IMF. So we should not expect employment in the coming years, not 1 year, not 2 years, but throughout the days of the program. So that is 3 years. Then also we have seen them talk about the fact that they are going to increase utility prices every 3 months. These are in the MEFP. There is in the document, and obviously government has agreed that they are going to increase the utility prices every 3 months and remove subsidies on all petroleum products, including premiums. They are going to remove subsidies on all of them. So premiums that are often subsidized, we are not going to see the subsidy. And then also, aside that, the subsidies on lifeline, on electricity prices are all going to be removed. They are all in the document. So as I said, there's a lot more that we are going to do in the coming days. We are going to serialize it. We are going to bring them out, and the people of Ghana will be able to see where exactly we are going. But again, another thing that we have seen in the document as published by the IMF on the IMF website is that there is a wide disparity between the information the minister responsible for finance has given to us as Parliament and what has been given to the IMF. For example, we have often been informed that Ghana has net international reserves of about 2 weeks. But the IMF document clearly shows that Ghana has a net international reserve of negative 98.5 billion. So it means, as at today, Ghana has no reserves. Zero. We have no reserves at all, no international reserves. In fact, we rather owe money. So the net international reserves is negative 98.5 million US dollars. That is where we are now. And all of these things surprises me because these are not the information that has been given to Parliament. So the information as in public domain is very different from what we have been made to believe through the IMF document. And to the fact that government has not been truthful to us, and the true state of Ghanaian economy is worse as of today than what we were made to believe, let's say 2 or 3 months ago, because that is not the case. Another example clearly shows that the fiscal deficit for 2021 was 12.1%, and 2022 was 11.02%. All of this has been kept away from Parliament, and Parliament hasn't been made aware of it. So, from what we have seen, the true state of the Ghanaian economy is far worse than what this government has published on the Ministry of Finance and the Central Bank's website. That is not the case, and far different from what has been submitted to Parliament as official position of government statistics. That is not really the case, because the IMF document, as prepared by the Ministry of Finance themselves and endorsed by the Minister of Finance and the Governor and signed off by the IMF board, clearly shows that the situation is far worse than we have been made to believe.
So the minority leader of Ghana's parliament has to find out the state of his economy, the true state of his economy, from the IMF.
Unfortunately, that is where the Akufo-Addo and the Bawumia government has driven the credibility of our country to, because it took only the IMF program for us to dig out this incredible and dangerous information that we are all seeing out there. Because what we see out there, I'm saddened, I'm worried, because the situation is far worse than we have been made to believe. No wonder our city was depreciating at a very fast rate. No wonder inflation was skyrocketing in the last year. And what again surprises me is the fact that the IMF, alluded to the fact and corroborated our position that the inflation that we are seeing, the central bank, the Bank of Ghana, played a major role in getting inflation to move from about 15% to 54%. Because the Bank of Ghana printed money equivalent of 7.2% of our GDP in 1 year to support the budget, and the following year they printed another 7.1 of our GDP to support government. So in 2 years in a row, you could see that the central bank's activity is part of the reason why the Ghanaian economy is in such a mess. Contrary to the Bank of Ghana Act, they breached the law completely. Now the IMF is telling them that there's the need for them to bring the Bank of Ghana law to Parliament to tighten it and to impose stricter sanctions for a governor and a central bank if they are to do things that will destroy the Ghanaian economy, just like they've done before. But as I can tell you, they breach the law. That is the position of the law. The IMF will not sit. They've started acting. But it is for us as the people of Ghana to also get the government to ensure that whoever breached the law, that destroyed our livelihood, messed up our economy, is held to account. And that one, I believe that a subsequent government will take action on what has been done by this administration.
And talking about tightening laws, the BOG law being tightened. In fact, the last time we saw a law that tried to rein in the deficit, more than 5%, there was even supposed to be criminal consequences for the finance minister. That was later relaxed. The finance minister was virtually allowed to go on a spending spree that ran our deficit to the point where we are. What would the tightening mean to the Ghanaian anyway if those laws can in the end not be implemented?
Okay, so first, the fiscal responsibility law or act has not been relaxed. The minister responsible for finance indeed breached the fiscal rules as enshrined in the law. He failed to comply with those provisions in the law clearly, and it will require the government and the Parliament of Ghana to act. We in the minority push for it, that the sanctions are stipulated in the fiscal responsibility rules must apply, and that is why we moved the censorship motion. You recall, I was at the time the ranking member. We were at the censor committee meeting, and then at that meeting we made our case that indeed he has breached the rules. The MPP did not support us. As a result, the Minister of Finance actually escaped from the sanction. But as I can tell you, if you breach a law and you have, for some reason, nobody holds you accountable in year one, never assume that that crime is gone. It is there forever, and it has a long memory. At the right time, the ordinary Ghanaian can call on you to answer. But again, as I keep saying, the same Fiscal Responsibility Act calls for suspension of rules, and then when there are certain emergencies, you can suspend the rules. So the minister and the government of Ghana came through Parliament and asked for these rules to be suspended so that they can go on borrowing spree using COVID-19 as an excuse. The IMF is saying that going forward, that provision that allows for the suspension of the fiscal rules is a bit vague. And so there was the need for them to tighten those rules. So they will make a proposal, and you can see it in the MEFP as published by the IMF, that there's a timeline by September 2023. That rules needs to be amended, and Parliament will have to consider and approve an amended version of the Fiscal Responsibility Act. So we'll live to see. And as I said, in the coming days, we will come out with our position on the IMF document so that the ordinary Ghanaian will have the opportunity to know the true state of the Ghanaian economy and what we should expect as part of the IMF program, or what the government has negotiated with the IMF to implement over the years, for at least 3 years. So we will actually review it, and the people of Ghana will have opportunity to understand what the IMF program means for the people of Ghana.
Minus negative $98.5 million. You said that's
the net international reserves as of today. It is in negative, according to the document before us.
And I recall when you were Deputy Minister at the Finance Ministry, when Dr. Bawumia was ringing the alarm bells, even at that time, we had not heard of negative 98.5 million in terms of our reserves. What does this actually mean to the economy? What does it say about where we are?
I mean, it tells you that the economy is in a terrible shape, and Ghana as we speak, has a negative net international reserves position. So the gross that they are reporting, that is showing about 1 week of international reserves, is largely encumbered. Or in other words, they are funds that does not belong to you. They are short-term funds that does not belong to you. Some of them includes borrowed amount, and then if you are to take all of that out, the net international reserves is actually in negative. And so simple put, if something severe happens to us as a country, we will not be able to import essentials. Example, medicine. Example, fuel. And that is what it is. So we do not have the reserves available to be able to turn around by importing essentials into the country. That, for me, is so severe. And the document tells us that this has been the case since 2022. So large part of 2022 and 2023, Ghana has had a negative international reserves. This, as I say, has been kept away from the people of Ghana, and nobody knew until this IMF program publishes the actual true state of the Ghanaian economy. But there's a lot more in the document. We will, in the coming days, work with it, bring out the fact, and the people of Ghana will be able to assess the true state of the Ghanaian economy.
And that is where the disrespect to Parliament still comes in. What would this mean to perhaps the credibility you attach to the words of the finance minister when he stands before you, even through a budget statement?
Look, as for the credibility of the finance minister, we all know, I mean, this is the same person who proudly said that Ghana is a proud nation. We are not going to the IMF. We'll never go to the IMF. Whatever we do, we will not go to IMF. Few weeks later, he had to do a U-turn, only for him to turn himself a proud Baba and to give the people of Ghana and bondholders a very crude and painful haircut. That is the kind of person we are dealing with. So I don't think it's new to us. It's a kind of finance minister that even his own party people, his own members of parliament, do not want him. Now we are waiting because there's a press statement coming from the majority that the president agreed with them, that he will conclude the IMF program and pack his bags. Let's wait and see if he's going to pack his bags. But I cannot be very optimistic about that because he definitely wants to hang on. The president wants him to stay. He wants to stay, and he wants to continue destroying the Ghanaian economy. That's the kind of person we have. So, hey, what can we do? We only plead with the people of Ghana to observe what is actually going on, and to be mindful that as long as this government stays in office, obviously, this Ghanaian economy has no future, and the people of Ghana certainly will not have a future. And that will mean that we have to do things differently. And to do things differently will mean that we have to get them out and bring someone who actually cares, who will pay attention to public opinion and do things that are in the interest of the public. Because what we are seeing certainly does not, illustrate a government that means well for the people of Ghana. Things are really in a bad shape. And it can only get worse. Thankfully, the headmaster of the IMF is in town. They are going to get them to start the digging. Some of the hard decisions, they will be forced to take them. And these hard decisions, some of them will have a negative repercussion on the livelihood of the ordinary Ghanaian. So, as I've said, as part of the press statement, that we should brace ourselves for difficult times ahead. That does not mean that we want the people of Ghana to go through a very difficult moment, but that is the reality. The reality published by the IMF, the reality as agreed with the IMF, that the government of Ghana intends to take us through this path. So, my brother, let's be ready for this. and wait for next week. And we hope that by next week we'll be able to bring these details out for the people of Ghana to understand.
I'll be waiting for that. But in the meantime, is there any room for Parliament to ensure that even though the suffering cannot be avoided, we don't get to the point where it becomes, I know it to be quite much, but that it overburdens the Ghanaian?
Look, this is a government that has slim majority in Parliament. And again, 99% of all the things we do in Parliament, be it imposition of a tax, be it a passage of government policy, will mean that Parliament will have to approve it by simple majority. So in any day, if they are able to mobilize.
Honorable. Hello. Well, it seems the line just went bad. We can't hear the minority leader. Let's see if we can get him back and conclude and move on to other issues on a Gold Morning Conversation. It's 4 minutes past 8. We are live on a Gold Morning Conversation. A happy birthday to Kayla Na Amele Tego of Botiano. It's from Mrs. Shadow to you. Kayla Na Amele Tego of Botiano. It's from Mrs. Shadow to you. Happy birthday to my very good friend Priscilla Oye Ofori. Happy birthday to you. And of course to Thompson Kwame Akono. Brother Thompson Kwame Akono. A happy birthday to you. And also happy birthday to Kojo Dazi, who is General Manager of Talent Marketing Services Limited. Koko Mlemle is coming from Abiadachi to you. Honorable, you are responding to my question of what Parliament can do for us.
Yes. So what I'm saying is that we are aware that there's a popular saying that goes that the minority will have their say, the majority will have their way. So oftentimes the opposition make the point, bring out the rot in the system, make the case strongly, and when it comes to voting, since they are more than asked by one to sin and witness, they will carry the day by getting some of these policies passed. Taxes are certainly going to go up, as in the document, in the coming budget review or the budget itself by November this year, and a lot more. So these measures are going to actually continue, and so we can continue making the point. But we pray that our colleagues from the MPP will stand up for the people of Ghana. They are also elected like all of us. They should be mindful that is the ordinary person that elected them and brought them to Parliament, and they cannot behave like they are behaving, as we've always seen, that they fail to even criticize their own government when they need be. They fail to side with the people of Ghana when policies are sent to Parliament, and we all know these policies are not in the good interest of Parliament or are not in the good interest of the people of Ghana. Instead of them siding with us and working with us to torpedo these policies and programs that are not in the interest of our country, they often side with their government and they fail to even criticize them when they need be. So Parliament is limited. We will continue doing what we are doing. We'll expose the rot. We'll bring it out for public discussion. But Parliament alone can do this job. We need our colleagues in academia, in civil society, and all of you, the media in particular, to also amplify some of the stance that we take and to join us in criticizing this government and opposing them anytime they take a decision that is not in the interest of our country. Until we do such a thing, we cannot always sit unconcerned or aloof and expect only the 137 NDC MPs to take that big responsibility of checking a government that doesn't really care. We can't do it alone. We need all of you to join us with us.
And talking about 137, it seems we have 136 now, because the Supreme Court has finally determined the case of your colleague, Honorable James Jechikwesin. It seems you are not happy with the decision of the Supreme Court at all.
The Supreme Court has come out with a verdict. There are options still available to us. We can go for a review if we so decide. And at the moment, the party is engaged in a by-election in Kumewu. And by Tuesday, we'll be done with that one. We'll take a decision as a political party if we are to continue the legal process or to take other decisions. So a decision will be made. It will be communicated to the public very soon.
But your colleague seems not in the mood for further legal action. And a statement that he's issued, that he's done.
Well, let's see. As I said, the NDC party will have to take a decision on this matter. It's not only up to him, it is also up to the party in whose ticket he is running for parliament, or he ran for parliament. And so the NDC will also take a decision, and we'll take it from there.
Honorable, thank you very much for speaking to us.
Thank you.
Honorable Cassiel Ato Forson is minority leader, speaking to us this morning on the approval of the IMF program by Parliament. And we'll take a break. When we'll come back, I see Aisha around. Nancy is available on standby.